What makes this story even more complicated is what happened just before Mom brought that purse home. You see, there were a few recent events that, in hindsight, now feel like clues themselves, or maybe even warnings. A few weeks earlier, she had an unusually tense conversation with her sister, my aunt, about family history. It was the kind of conversation that starts casually but ends with both people avoiding eye contact, shifting topics fast, and maybe, just maybe, hiding something they don't want to share. They never really explained what was said, but I remember the way Mom looked afterward, like she had been carrying a weight she hadn't mentioned to anyone else. Around that same time, a cousin we rarely see suddenly popped back into the picture, reaching out on social media with questions about our grandparents that felt oddly pointed. We didn't know why he was interested or what he was really after, but the timing was strange. And then there was the neighbor, someone who had been friendly with our family for years but had always seemed a little too curious about our personal affairs, dropping by unannounced and asking questions that didn't quite add up. These little threads, when you look at them all together, start to weave a tapestry of mystery, people who might know more than they let on, and secrets that might have been kept for a reason. And that's where the tension really started to build. Because once the letter was found, questions began swirling around us like a storm. Who wrote it? Why was it hidden inside a purse that ended up in a thrift store, far from home? What was the secret so powerful that it had to be kept out of sight, locked away in a letter and concealed in something as ordinary as a handbag? We tried to piece it together, but every answer seemed to lead to more questions. Some parts of the letter hinted at family betrayals and unspoken alliances, others suggested relationships that nobody in our family had ever talked about. Was this about someone's hidden identity, a lost relative, or something even darker? At one point, I even wondered if the letter was a red herring, planted to distract us or protect someone's reputation. The more we dug, the more it felt like walking through a maze with no clear exit, each turn revealing a new clue but also a new mystery. What's crazy is that this story isn't just about the letter or the purse, it's about the people caught up in it, and the web of emotions tangled between them. My mom, who has always been the rock of our family, suddenly found herself vulnerable and unsure, confronting questions she'd never expected. My aunt, who once seemed so distant, became more involved but guarded. And that cousin, whose sudden interest raised suspicions, might hold keys to parts of the story no one else dared to touch. Meanwhile, the neighbor's unexpected visits took on a new meaning, making us wonder if there were eyes watching us, waiting for us to uncover the truth. It's like every relationship in our family was under a microscope, with old wounds resurfacing and new tensions simmering beneath polite smiles. And the letter, the mysterious letter hidden in a second-hand purse, was the spark that set everything ablaze. As all of this was unfolding, we kept coming back to one thing: how often do we really know the stories behind the things we find or inherit? How many secrets get passed down silently, tucked away in drawers or behind closet doors, waiting for the right moment to come to light? It's a question that's haunted me ever since Mom opened that purse. Because that letter didn't just reveal a secret family story, it opened a door to the past that none of us were fully prepared to face. And now, with every new piece of the puzzle, the mystery only grows deeper. There are whispers of betrayals, unspoken rivalries, and long-lost connections that no one really wants to talk about. The more we try to understand, the more elusive the truth becomes, as if someone or something is trying to keep it buried forever. So, here's where we are, a family caught between the past and the present, with a hidden letter that's challenging everything we thought we knew. There are questions without answers, characters with unclear motives, and secrets so tangled that untangling them feels impossible. But one thing is certain: this story isn't over. Not by a long shot. What happened before, who's involved, and what this letter truly means are all pieces that we're still trying to put together. And trust me, the journey is far from easy. It's full of twists, turns, and moments that will make you question what you believe about family, trust, and identity. And just when you think you've got it figured out, something new emerges to change the game entirely. If you've ever been fascinated by stories of hidden family secrets, unexplained mysteries, and unexpected discoveries that alter lives forever, you're in the right place. Because this story will take you on a ride you won't forget, a ride that starts with a simple purse and a hidden letter but ends with a secret so profound, it will make you rethink everything. So stick with me, because the next part is where things really start to unravel, and the true depth of this secret family mystery begins to come to light. You won't want to miss a single moment. As we began to dig deeper into the letter's contents and the tangled history it hinted at, things started to get complicated in ways none of us could have predicted. It felt like every step forward was met with some invisible force pushing us back, like the past itself was fighting to stay hidden. One of the first major roadblocks came when a key piece of evidence, the original envelope the letter had been carefully folded inside, suddenly went missing. It wasn't just any piece of paper. That envelope had a postmark, a handwritten address, and even faint smudges of ink that could have helped us trace where the letter came from. But one day, after Mom had set it down in her favorite armchair, it was just gone. We searched everywhere, tearing through drawers, retracing every move she'd made, but it was as if it had vanished into thin air. No one admitted to moving it, no one could explain where it had gone, and yet the absence was deafening because without that envelope, our clues were suddenly incomplete. It was the first real sign that this mystery wasn't just about old family secrets, but maybe something bigger. And that's when the warnings started. Out of nowhere, we began receiving strange messages, some vague, some downright creepy, telling us to stop digging. The first was an anonymous note slipped under the door, written in hurried, shaky handwriting. Some truths are better left buried. Then came a phone call late at night, where the voice on the other end was distorted but the tone unmistakably serious. Stop looking. It's not worth it. At first, we thought it was a prank or someone trying to scare us off, but the timing was too coincidental, and the fear was real. Suddenly, the thrill of discovery was replaced by a gnawing sense of danger, as if the more we uncovered, the more we were stirring something that wanted to stay hidden. And that's when we realized this wasn't just a family mystery, it was a powder keg of emotions, loyalties, and betrayals that had been waiting to explode. Behind all of this, a shadowy figure started to emerge, someone who was supposed to be an ally but quickly felt more like a puzzle wrapped in secrets. There was a man named David, an old family friend who had always been there during gatherings, always ready with a smile and a story, someone we thought we could trust. But as we shared the letter's contents with him, his reactions were oddly reserved, his answers vague. He changed the subject when we asked about certain names, and at times, his eyes flickered with something we couldn't quite place. Was it guilt, fear, or something else? Over time, subtle things began to add up. Phone calls he made in private, questions he asked about what we knew, and once, a heated argument we overheard where his voice was low and urgent, warning someone to leave it alone. David's role in this story became murkier by the day, and we couldn't tell if he was protecting us or protecting himself. Was he involved in the secret this letter was exposing, or was he trying to keep a dangerous truth from coming to light? Amidst all these obstacles, we uncovered whispers of a long-hidden betrayal that dated back decades, something no one in the family had ever spoken of. A secret event that had split our relatives apart, an affair, a stolen inheritance, a broken promise, something that had left scars still fresh beneath the surface. Pieces of that event were hinted at in the letter's cryptic lines, but nobody alive wanted to say it out loud. It was like the past was a wound too painful to touch, and yet it was precisely that wound that the letter was trying to reveal. The more we learned, the more it felt like we were walking into a trap, caught between what was true and what had been hidden behind layers of silence and denial. And just when we thought things couldn't get more intense, the biggest twist hit us hard. Late one evening, as Mom was reading the letter again by the dim light of the kitchen, her phone buzzed with a message that froze her in place. It was a photo, the second-hand purse, sitting exactly where she had found it, but inside, in plain sight, was something new. A small, folded piece of paper peeked out from a secret pocket, something none of us had noticed before. Whoever sent it didn't include a message, just the photo, a silent warning, a challenge, or maybe an invitation to keep going. We looked at each other, realizing that the mystery wasn't over. If anything, it was just beginning. And now, with new clues appearing in the most unexpected places, we had to ask, who else is watching us, and what else have they hidden? The answers were out there, but so were the dangers of uncovering them. We had crossed a line, and from here on out, nothing would be the same. Just as we were trying to make sense of that mysterious photo showing the new hidden note inside the purse, Something happened that threw the whole situation into chaos and made us realize this secret wasn't just isolated to our immediate family, it was bigger and far more complicated than any of us had imagined. Out of nowhere, my cousin Jess, who lives across the country and had only recently reconnected with us through social media, reached out in a panic. She told us she'd received an envelope that looked eerily familiar, sealed with the same faded postmark as the one we'd lost, and inside, there was a letter strikingly similar to the one Mom found, cryptic, emotional, and packed with clues about a secret someone had desperately tried to bury. Jess was shaken, her voice trembling as she described how the letter hinted at family betrayals and secrets connected not just to our branch of the family tree, but to people none of us had ever really talked about. Suddenly, the web of mystery wasn't just stretching across town or through a dusty old purse, it was spanning states, possibly even generations, weaving in people we barely knew and stories we never heard. This new development forced us to rethink everything we thought we understood about the letter and the secret it held. What if the story wasn't just about one hidden betrayal or one family fractured by silence? What if it was about a tangled network of lies and half-truths that had spread like roots beneath our family's foundation for decades? The stakes felt higher than ever. This wasn't just about uncovering a hidden past anymore. It was about confronting something that might change the way we all saw ourselves and each other forever. And just when we thought we might find an ally in Jess, someone who could help us piece this puzzle together, it became clear that even those closest to us weren't completely trustworthy. Her messages started to become cryptic, and she began asking questions about what we knew and who else had seen the letter. At one point, she confessed she felt watched, that strange people had been calling her, asking odd questions about our family history and the purse. We were no longer just unraveling a mystery, we were becoming part of one, caught in a game where everyone seemed to have a secret, and no one's motives were clear. Meanwhile, more contradictions began to surface, shaking the fragile trust we had started to build around what the letter meant. Some clues suggested that the letter might not have come from a family member at all, but from someone outside the family trying to manipulate the narrative, to rewrite history for reasons we couldn't yet understand. Details that we'd initially accepted as fact, dates, names, relationships, started to conflict with old family records and stories told by relatives who had lived through those times. Even David, the once trusted family friend, seemed to have his own version of events, one that clashed with the letter's claims and with what others were saying. It felt like every new piece of information pulled us deeper into a maze of uncertainty where the line between friend and foe blurred, and every character carried their own hidden agenda. The more we questioned, the more confusing it became. Was someone deliberately trying to mislead us? Or were we just discovering how complicated the truth really is when years of secrets collide? Amidst all this tension, Mom's behavior shifted too. She became guarded, sometimes disappearing for hours without explanation, locking herself away with the letters and photos. The weight of the mystery was starting to take its toll, and the people we thought would be the most reliable were suddenly the ones raising the most questions. Our family dinners became charged with unspoken suspicions, with glances exchanged over crowded tables and conversations that stopped abruptly when someone walked in the room. We all felt the invisible pressure mounting, knowing that each of us was now part of a story bigger than any of us could control, a story where every discovery risked opening new wounds, and every truth revealed could shatter long-held beliefs. And just when we thought we might catch a break, the next blow came in the form of a message we couldn't ignore. It wasn't a letter or a call this time, but a photo sent to Mom's phone late at night, a blurry image of a figure standing outside our house, watching from the shadows. No explanation, no words, just a silent reminder that we weren't the only ones interested in this secret. Suddenly, the mystery wasn't just a puzzle to solve, it was a threat hanging over our heads. With the stakes rising higher and every person around us cloaked in suspicion, we were forced to ask ourselves, who could we really trust, and how far were we willing to go to uncover the truth? The answers were out there somewhere, tangled in the shadows between family loyalty and long-buried secrets, and we knew that the next move could change everything. The moment things took a darker turn hit me like a freight train, shaking the very ground beneath our feet and making it impossible to pretend this was just some distant family drama we could walk away from. It started with a creeping feeling, the kind that settles deep in your gut when something isn't right, when you notice the same car parked outside your house for hours, or catch a glimpse of a shadow slipping just beyond your peripheral vision. At first, I tried to brush it off as paranoia, a side effect of spending so much time obsessed with this letter and the tangled family secrets it had unleashed. But then the unthinkable happened. Jess, the cousin who'd been so involved and suddenly distant, disappeared without a trace. No calls, no messages, nothing. One day she was there, frantic and scared, telling us about the strange calls and now this. The next, she was gone, leaving behind a trail colder than the winter nights we'd been sharing our theories in. The police were called, but without any concrete evidence or leads, it quickly became a case of missing person without answers. And that's when the weight of fear hit me. This wasn't just a secret some family wanted to keep quiet, it was something people were willing to silence for good. With Jess gone, every creak in the house sounded louder, every unexpected knock or unfamiliar voice on the phone made my heart race. I caught myself double-checking locks, peering through windows, and jumping at every rustle of leaves outside. The paranoia wasn't just mental anymore, it was real, as tangible as the letter that started it all. There were moments I questioned if I was imagining things, if the stress was twisting my mind, but then the direct threats began. One night, a single, chilling voicemail came through on Mom's phone, no words, just heavy breathing, a pause, and then a voice whispering her name so softly it almost slipped away. It wasn't a prank. It was a warning. And it was clear that whoever was behind this wanted us to stop or else. The silence afterward was deafening, and the feeling of being hunted settled in like a storm cloud ready to burst. I remember sitting alone in the dark, holding that letter, trying to piece everything together while my mind raced with fear and confusion. Questions swirled through my head like a whirlwind. Why was Jess targeted? Was it because she knew too much, or because she stumbled onto something someone wanted hidden? Could it be the same people who had made the envelope disappear, who sent the warnings, who watched us from the shadows? And then there was David, whose strange behavior suddenly felt less like paranoia and more like a warning sign we hadn't been brave enough to face. Was he protecting us or protecting himself? Was he part of this sinister web, or just another pawn caught in a game none of us fully understood? The line between friend and foe blurred with every new piece of information, leaving me desperate for clarity but terrified of what answers might bring. The emotional toll was crushing. Watching Mom try to stay strong while I could see the fear behind her eyes was almost unbearable. Our family, once filled with laughter and shared memories, had become a place where silence ruled and every glance was heavy with suspicion. The letter, once a mysterious clue waiting to be unraveled, now felt like a curse, a key to a door we might never want to open but couldn't close either. Each day brought new fears, new shadows creeping closer, and the unsettling realization that this story had turned from a mystery into a threat. And with Jess missing, the purse's hidden note still untouched, and no clear path forward, the questions multiplied instead of fading away. Who was behind all this? What was the secret so dangerous that it had to be guarded with fear and silence? And most terrifying of all, would we ever find out before it was too late? Just when we thought the pieces of this puzzle were slowly coming together, twisting and turning in a way that made sense of the chaos, the ground beneath us shifted so drastically it felt like everything we believed was built on a lie. It wasn't just a missing letter or a hidden family secret anymore, it was a trap, and we had walked right into it blindfolded. The twist came unexpectedly, during one of those long, tense nights when Mom and I were poring over every scrap of paper, every faded photograph, desperate for any detail we'd missed. That's when David showed up at the door, his expression unreadable, his eyes clouded with something we hadn't seen before, fear, yes, but also a strange urgency. He wasn't the friend we thought we knew. The trust we'd placed in him shattered in the first few words he whispered behind closed doors. David confessed that the letter wasn't written by a long-lost relative or some ghost of our family's past, it was a carefully crafted forgery, designed to manipulate us into digging up a secret that certain powerful people wanted buried forever. The letter had been planted, a calculated move in a much larger game none of us had understood. The secret it hinted at was real, but not in the way we'd imagined. It wasn't about betrayal between family members or a hidden inheritance. It was about something darker, illegal dealings, betrayals that stretched far beyond our family tree, and people who had gone to extraordinary lengths to keep those dealings hidden, using fear and silence as their weapons. And the most chilling part. David revealed he'd been part of that world once, caught in the crossfire of loyalty and survival, which explained his strange behavior, his reluctance to answer questions, and his sudden warnings. He wasn't protecting us, he was protecting himself, hoping to warn us before it was too late. As if that wasn't enough, David pulled out a folder thick with documents and photos, evidence that contradicted everything we thought we knew. Faces of strangers mingled with those of our relatives, meetings and transactions under the cover of darkness, and names that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Suddenly, every theory about the purse, the letter, and Jess's disappearance needed to be re-examined. Was Jess a victim of those who wanted to silence the truth, or had she stumbled into a dangerous world we'd only glimpsed from the edges? Was the purse just a trigger, a key to unlock a door better left closed? The deeper we went, the more it became clear that the real enemy wasn't just a shadowy figure lurking nearby, it was the entire system of lies and betrayals that had been built over decades, infiltrating even those we'd considered family. What made it worse was the realization that some of the people closest to us weren't innocent bystanders but players with their own hidden agendas. That feeling of paranoia, once dismissed as fear, now felt justified. The question wasn't just who to trust anymore, it was whether anyone could be trusted at all. We were trapped in a web spun by secrets, lies, and betrayals, where the truth was dangerous and silence deadly. And the more David revealed, the more I understood why Jess's disappearance was so terrifyingly real, not just as a missing person, but as a warning that some secrets are protected by more than just fear, they're protected by power, and that power was watching us every step of the way. This wasn't the family mystery we thought it was. It was something far darker, far more dangerous, and far from over. The purse had been a key all along, but the door it opened led to a place where the truth might cost more than we ever imagined. And with Jess gone, David's real role revealed, and the shadow of something bigger closing in, all I could do was ask myself, how deep was this rabbit hole, and would we ever be able to climb back out? The weight of everything crashing down on me was unbearable, like being caught between two worlds that were tearing me apart from the inside. After David's shocking confession, I realized there was no going back to the way things were before, no more quiet nights, no more half-truths we could live with. The mystery had turned into a nightmare, and I was stuck in the middle of it, forced to make choices that felt impossible. It all came to a head one afternoon when I finally confronted Mom. I needed to know how deep she had been dragged into this tangled web, whether she was an innocent bystander or someone protecting a secret darker than any of us imagined. Her face was a mask of calm, but her eyes betrayed her, a mixture of fear, guilt, and something I couldn't quite place. When I pressed her, she broke down, confessing that she'd known more than she'd ever let on. That letter, the purse, even Jess's disappearance, they weren't accidents or coincidences. They were pieces of a truth she'd been trying to shield me from, out of love, but also out of fear. She admitted that for years she'd lived with the knowledge of those illegal dealings David talked about, kept silent to protect what little family we had left. But now, with everything unraveling, she was scared that uncovering the truth might destroy us all. It was then that the ultimatum came, cold and unforgiving. Late that night, my phone buzzed with a message so direct, so chilling, it left no room for doubt or delay. Stop digging, or you lose everything. The sender was unknown, but the threat was crystal clear. If I chose to keep chasing this story, chasing Jess's disappearance, the letters, the hidden past, I risked not just my safety but the fragile bonds holding my family together. If I walked away, I'd be abandoning the truth and everyone who had been hurt by it. The choice felt like standing at a crossroads with no good options, either protect my family by burying the past or risk losing them forever by bringing the secret into the light. The emotional pressure was crushing, and the paranoia that had been creeping in now turned into a suffocating fog. Who could I trust when the people I loved were keeping secrets, when friends turned into suspects, and every answer only led to more questions? I was terrified, not just for myself but for Mom, for Jess, and for everyone caught in this spiraling mess. The line between right and wrong blurred in those moments, and I struggled with the weight of what it meant to pursue the truth at such a cost. Every knock on the door, every whisper behind closed curtains, every glance from someone I once trusted now carried suspicion. I found myself questioning everything, my instincts, my memories, the loyalty of the very people who were supposed to be my safe haven. The conflict wasn't just external anymore, it was inside me, tearing at my sense of identity and trust. I wanted to believe there was a way out, a path that didn't end in loss or betrayal, but the shadows around us were growing darker, and the stakes had never felt higher. With the past threatening to consume the present, and the future hanging in the balance, I realized this story wasn't just about uncovering family secrets anymore. It was about survival, about choosing which battles to fight and which scars we could live with. And that choice. It was mine, and it might be the hardest decision I'd ever have to make. The moment the truth finally crashed down on me, it felt like the walls around my world came crumbling down all at once, and suddenly, the weight of everything was unbearable. What started as a secret hidden in an old second-hand purse spiraled into a massive conspiracy that wasn't just about my family, it was about a whole network of people connected in ways I couldn't have imagined. It hit me like a punch in the gut when I discovered that someone I trusted more than anyone, someone who had been by my side through all the chaos, was actually working against me. The betrayal wasn't subtle, it was brutal and undeniable, tearing apart the fragile trust that had been holding us together. I caught them red-handed, trying to erase evidence, feeding false information to lead me off the trail, and worse, quietly threatening anyone who dared get too close to the truth. The realization that the enemy wasn't a shadowy stranger but someone so close cut deeper than any other wound. As everything unfolded, it became clear that this conspiracy was bigger, far bigger, than a family secret or a hidden letter. The people involved weren't just distant relatives or old friends, they were powerful figures who had woven their influence into businesses, law enforcement, and politics, covering tracks with money, intimidation, and silence. What had started as an emotional mystery about betrayal and lost trust became a dangerous game where every step forward risked exposing something that could bring down lives, reputations, and even institutions. The fear and urgency were suffocating. Every call felt like a trap, every message a threat, and every glance over my shoulder a reminder that I was being watched. The lines between ally and adversary blurred into a haze of paranoia where the only certainty was that the truth was more dangerous than any of us had ever imagined. The pressure to uncover the truth became almost unbearable, not just because of what was at stake but because I was forced to face the reality that this conspiracy had already infiltrated my life in ways I couldn't undo. Friends became suspects, family became strangers, and the people who once felt like my safe harbor were now potential threats. The emotional rollercoaster left me exhausted, teetering on the edge of hopelessness and determination. Every moment felt like a race against time, knowing that with every secret I uncovered, the danger grew closer, the shadows darker. The stakes were no longer just about finding Jess or revealing what was hidden in that old purse, they were about survival, justice, and the painful process of breaking free from a web that had entangled not just my family but an entire system built on deception. With the conspiracy laid bare, I knew there was no turning back. The only choice left was to face it head-on, risking everything for a chance at truth and closure. The question wasn't if I would be caught in the crossfire, but when and what would be lost in the process. The journey had become a battle between silence and revelation, loyalty and betrayal, safety and courage. And as the pieces finally clicked into place, I realized this story was far from over, it was just reaching its most dangerous, most explosive chapter yet. The air was thick with tension the night I finally decided to confront the person behind everything, the one whose lies had twisted our family's story into a nightmare none of us could have imagined. My heart pounded like a drum in my chest as I stepped into the dimly lit room, every sense on high alert, every shadow threatening to swallow me whole. The evidence was laid bare in front of me, the documents, the photos, the whispered confessions from David, and now, I was ready to face the truth head-on, no matter the cost. The person I confronted wasn't some distant stranger lurking in the shadows, but someone who had worn the mask of trust and kinship for years, weaving a web so intricate that even I had been fooled until the final threads unraveled. The confrontation wasn't just a battle of words, it was a collision of all the pain, fear, and betrayal that had built up over months, a storm of raw emotion and desperate truths exploding between us. They tried to deny it at first, of course, blaming circumstances, painting themselves as victims of circumstance or necessity. But as I pressed harder, the cracks in their story widened, revealing the dark heart beneath. The secrets of illegal dealings, the threats, Jess's disappearance, all part of a plan to protect their power and control, even if it meant destroying the people closest to them. I felt the weight of every lie, every betrayal, every moment of trust shattered. But just as the tension reached its breaking point, I uncovered the final piece of evidence hidden in a place no one thought to look: a forgotten journal tucked inside the lining of the second-hand purse that started it all. The journal wasn't just a record of events, it was a confession, a roadmap of manipulation, and most shockingly, a revelation that Jess had discovered this truth before she vanished and left a trail of clues intentionally for me to find. The realization hit me like lightning: Jess wasn't just a victim, she was fighting back, leaving breadcrumbs to expose the darkness swallowing our family. The room seemed to close in around us as the villain's facade crumbled completely, revealing a desperate, broken person trapped by their own greed and fear. I could see flashes of the person they once were, the family member I thought I knew, buried beneath layers of lies and survival. The battle was no longer just about uncovering the truth, it was about reclaiming the narrative stolen from us and finding a way to heal from the wounds inflicted. But just when I thought the nightmare had reached its climax, the final twist hit me like a cold wave. Someone else, someone I never suspected, emerged from the shadows, revealing they had been orchestrating much of the chaos from behind the scenes, manipulating both sides for their own gain. The game was far from over, and the fight for the truth was just beginning. In that moment, standing amidst the wreckage of betrayal and revelation, I realized this story was more than just about a hidden letter or a second-hand purse. It was about the power of truth to disrupt, destroy, but also to redeem. The stakes had never been higher, and the cost of silence had become painfully clear. The journey had led me to this intense confrontation, but the path ahead promised even more danger and uncertainty. And as I looked into the eyes of those who had hidden their true selves for so long, I knew one thing for sure: there was no turning back. The truth was out, and now, we would all have to face the consequences. After everything that had unfolded, the betrayals, the secrets, the shadows lurking just beneath the surface, I finally felt a fragile kind of peace begin to settle, not because the story was neatly tied up, but because the truth was finally out in the open. The confrontation had shattered illusions, and while some wounds still throbbed with pain, the darkness that had haunted us for so long had been pushed back, if only slightly. Jess's disappearance remained a haunting question mark, but the clues she left behind gave me hope that she was still out there, fighting her own battle, much like I was. Family gatherings were quieter now, tinged with the weight of what we'd uncovered, but also with an unspoken understanding that silence was no longer an option. The legacy of secrets we'd inherited was painful, but it was also a catalyst for change, a call to face uncomfortable truths and rebuild from the ashes. Yet, even as I closed this chapter, I couldn't shake the feeling that the story wasn't quite finished. The revelation of the hidden puppeteer behind the scenes left a lingering unease, a reminder that some battles are far from over and that truth, once revealed, has a way of stirring up new shadows. There was a lesson in all of this, one that felt deeply personal but also universal: the idea that our pasts shape us, but they don't have to define us, that sometimes, uncovering the truth means risking everything, yet it's the only path toward healing. As I walked away from the house that held so many memories, the second-hand purse tucked safely away, I knew that this story would stay with me forever, not as a simple mystery solved, but as a reminder of the complexities hidden beneath the surface of every family, every relationship, and every life. For those watching, I hope this journey through secrets and shadows resonates, reminding you that sometimes the most ordinary things, like a purse found in a thrift shop, can open doors to extraordinary truths. And that the courage to face those truths, no matter how dark or painful, is what ultimately defines us. The story may have reached its resolution, but the questions it raises about trust, loyalty, and the power of silence linger long after the screen goes dark. Because in every family, in every heart, there are stories waiting to be uncovered, and sometimes the greatest mysteries are the ones we carry within ourselves. So as you think back on this journey, ask yourself, what secrets are waiting to be found in your own life? And are you ready to face them?